This section is about variables and expressions. Now there's a lot of vocabulary in this section, so please make sure that you write those down. So an algebraic expression, that's one of our vocab words, contains numbers, variables, and operations. So operations are like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now remember, variables are symbols we use to represent unspecified numbers or values. And the most common variable we use is x, but you can use any letter really. Just try not to use things like O's and S's because they look like zeros and fives. Then a term is a number, a variable, or the product or quotient of numbers and variables. So remember, product is multiplying and quotient is division. So a term could be something like 3x, because that would be the product of a number and variable. It could just be a number, like plus 4. So this has two terms, 3x and 4, each their own term. A factor is a quantity that is being multiplied. A product is the result of factors that are multiplied. So again, product is the answer to a multiplication problem. A power is a number that is expressed when using an exponent. So for example, 3 to the 4th. That whole thing is called a power. Four is the exponent. The number that is raised to an exponent is called the base. So the 3 here is the base. And the exponent tells you how many times a number is used as a factor. So remember, factors are what we're multiplying. So the exponent tells me to use my base of 3 4 times I'm multiplying, because the exponent is 4. So again, power is the whole thing, base is the bigger number, the 3 in this case, and 4 is the exponent. The exponent tells you how many times to write the base out. So we're going to be writing some verbal expressions, so we need to know what different words mean. So we have operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and here are some keywords for each, so please write those in your notebook. Addition, we can have more than, sum, plus, increased by, added to. Okay, sum comes up a lot. Some of these you're super familiar with, like plus. So try and use the ones you're not as familiar with when you're actually writing the sentences out to get more practice. Subtraction, we have less than, subtracted from, difference, decreased by, and minus. So difference is probably one of the most common ones you'll see. Multiplication, we already said product is multiplication earlier. Multiply by, times, and of is a very common one as well. And division, there's not a whole lot. Quotient is one of the most common, and then divided by. So please make sure you write those in your notebook. So here we want to write a verbal expression. That means write this expression out in words. So I want you to try to use as many of the keywords that you're not as familiar with. So for example, this 3 is right next to x to the 4th, so I know it's getting multiplied. So you could say 3 times x to the 4th power. but I'm going to try and use a word that we don't use as much, product. So I'm going to say the product of 3 and x to the 4th power. Okay, so there is obviously more than one way you could write this out. So this next one, the big thing here is the plus. So I'm going to use the word sum, since we don't use that a lot, to represent plus. So I'm going to say 5 times x, let's use squared to represent the exponent of 2. You could also say to the 2nd power. So I said I was going to use sum, so I'm going to say the sum of, sorry I missed that, 5 times x squared and 16. So I'm doing the sum of 5 times x squared and 16. Let's see, we have subtraction here. Let's do difference for that one. Okay, you could also say minus or something like that, but I'm going to try and use words that we're not as familiar with. So let's do the difference of 16 times u to the 2nd power. Again, you could use squared like we did in the previous one. And 3. 16 times u to the 2nd power and 3. The difference of those. So there's multiple ways that you could write these out. Those are just the ones that I chose. So the second thing is going the other way, and this is normally harder for you. You have a verbal expression and you need to write this in the algebraic term. So we have to look for keywords and decide what those mean. So we have a number t, so we're going to have variable t, more than 6. Well, if I want more than 6, I have 6, I want more than that, and it says a number t more than that, so that'd be 6 plus t. So again, you have to look for keywords. More than I know is addition. So t plus 6 would also work, because addition we can do in any order. However, subtraction you cannot, so you need to be careful with that. So we have 10 less than something. So if we have 10 less than something, we're taking away 10. What are we taking away 10 from? The product, which we know is multiplication, of 7 and f. So 7 times f, I can write those next to each other, so I don't have to write the multiplication sign between them. Last one, 2/3. Well, 2/3 I know is a fraction, so 2/3 of. Another key word, again, means to multiply, of the volume v. So we want 2/3 of v, or 2/3 v. You can write the dot for multiplication, but if you write a variable right next to a number, then multiplication is implied. And so that's all there is to translating back and forth between verbal and algebraic expressions. Make sure those keywords that we wrote down, that you have those memorized.